All right, here we go. Sefer Yeshua, Parak Aleph, Pasuk Vav. Chazak ve'amatz. We'll see exactly what the difference in types between Chazak ve'amatz is. Rashi says that Chazak ve'amatz means to be mechazik yourself for derech eretz. K'meishu oimer kat Tnchiil as ha'aretz. So that's the derech. You have to be mechazik yourself to get used to the derech of the eretz, I guess, in some way. Because you, Hashem is talking to Yeshua, you will be the one that will give this land to the people. You're going to be the one that's going to be manchil, that's going to give over this to this nation, the land that I swore to your fathers to give to them. So let's just see the Pasha Pshat and what's going on over here. The Metzudah says, Chazak ve'amatz b'anhagas ha'am karoya, Kadosh Baruch Hu is telling Yeshua that he should lead the nation properly. Okay, so it's very interesting because I hope to talk about this in the next pasuk, which is again the pasuk says Rak Chazak ve'amatz ma'oid. That's a pasuk Zayin v'chulu. Then pasuk has very famous L'yomer Sefer Torah Zamipichu v'gis be'em v'layla. And then you have pasuk Tet again Haloi tzivisicha Chazak ve'amatz. It says 3 times Chazak ve'amatz. What do we say when we finish a Sefer of Chomesh? Chazak, Chazak. It's Chazak. Some people have the meaning to say Chazak, Chazak, Chazak 3 times, right? This Gematria Moshe, 3 times Chazak, right? That's why we're coming to Mechazik Moshe. In the Inyan of Moshe Rabbeinu, they state, we'll leave that for a different time, but I'll call upon him that's, there's three Inyanim of Chizik. Would make a lot of sense that to be mechazik b'derech eretz, because the next pasuk is Rag Chazak ve'amatz ma'oid lishmar lasas kechol haTorah. The next 2 psukim are HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling Yeshua to be mechazik in Torah, so derech eretz kodem laTorah. So that would make a lot of sense. So then what's the third one, right? So in the next year we'll talk about that there's a Gemara that says, like a Brisa in Masechta Brachos, Lamed Beis and Beis, the Gemara says, Tan Rabbanon Arba Dvarim Tzrichen Chizik. There's 4 things they need chizik: Torah, Tefillah, Ma'aseh Tovim, and Derech Eretz. The question is what Derech Eretz means. Pashtus means a job, or learning how to get along with other people properly. But we're going to leave that for now, and we're going to focus more on what's the difference between Chazak ve'amatz and Bechlal, what's going on. What's this pasuk? Ata Tnchiil as ha'om hazeh, as ha'aretz asher nishba'ti la'avosam l'sislam. The reason why I think in Pasha Pshat, the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to tell Yeshua to be mechazik in derech eretz when he's fighting this war is very simple. When Klal Yisrael was in the Midbar, they had phenomenal nisim going on 24/7. They come to Eretz Yisrael. The man lasted for a little bit. The Ananim gone. Be'er Miriam hangs around a little bit, but it's gone. The anhaga of nisim that they had when they were in the Midbar, when they come into Eretz Yisrael, they lost that, or it showed up in a different way. I don't think they lost it legamri, but it didn't exist in the way that they had it in the Midbar. So you'll think when you'll come into Eretz Yisrael, so you'll have Moshe fights Agim Melech HaBashan, takes the stick, whacks his foot, falls down dead. Maybe that's how they'll fight the 31 kings and all the people in Eretz Yisrael. You're going to have to fight the wars in Eretz Yisrael like regular Milchama. So that's what HaKadosh Baruch was telling him. You have to be noyeg k'derech kol ha'aretz. That's the derech eretz that you have to do. On top of that, that's when HaKadosh Baruch is going to tell him that the way, if you want to fight the war b'derech ruchnius, right, or b'anhaga nisis with nisim, then you have to be rak chazak ve'amatz ma'oid in divrei Torah, and then with the divrei Torah you'll be able to fight, which is a very fascinating and interesting shmooze, which hopefully we'll get to a little bit. The Goyin says that Chazak is beguf, Amatz is belev. Chazak means to be physically ready to fight the war, and Amatz belev means emotionally ready, to get psyched up and to get pumped up to fight the war. And because we know that the psukim in Sefer Dvarim say that when you're fighting a war, leyerech levavchem, you can't have a weak heart. If a person has a weak heart, he's going to convince others that this milchama is not negeya, right? And tchilas, the Gemara says tchilas nefila nisa, or Tchilas Nisa Nefila. There's two nuschos in the Gemara. The Gemara brings two different ways how to learn it. But either way, when people get not in the mood and they're not interested and they start giving up or they start feeling schwach about it, so then the Melchama falls flat, and then it can be very dangerous. So anybody who's swift-hearted and is not able to fight the war properly, it can't be part of the war, and so that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is continuously being mitzvah him with Inyanei Chizik, because that's the only way. But it's not just the Chizik about the war, because last time we spoke, and we're going to see weiter, that the pshat and the Chizik is for the Chizik that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving Yeshua to be the one, to be the leader. Because, a person who's a new leader is not, he's not used to it yet. He has to grow into the job. He has to grow into the shtella. He's new to the shtella, so he doesn't have, he's not used to it yet. And the Malbim says that there's two inyanim over here that need chizik. The first thing that needs chizik is chazak ve'amatz, is going back to what we said in pasuk Heileis Yatzev Yishlu Fanecha, that nobody's going to be able to stand up against you. So if you're a tough leader, no one's going to be able to stand up against you. So you have to become a tough person, in a sense. And then he goes weiter and he says that the tchilas hisayrus of gvura is called tikra b'lashon chizik. So chizik means when you get that initial push to fight against, or to that initial hisayrus that you get, that initial idea or that initial hisayrus that you get to do something, that's called chizik, and to keep it up, that's called Ometz Halev. And whenever you find, and the Malbim goes on to say that whenever you find these l'shaynis and psukim, that's what it means. That and then he goes right to them when HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps a person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us yafta d'shmaya after a person starts. You start HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yeah, I think when there was a kids tape that says you try your best and Hashem does the rest. I think that's how it goes. And then he goes weiter and he explains the rest of the pasuk like this also, because he says ki ata Tnachil, because you're gonna be the one that's gonna give out the land of Eretz Yisrael, right? Matt, we give out when a Rebbe gives out donuts, or I want, right? The Gemara says in Kedushin, the Gemara says this guy likes living on a mountain, this guy likes living in a valley, this guy likes living in a flat place, this guy needs 7 bedrooms, this guy needs 6 bathrooms. How do you accommodate everybody, right? So it's true that it was done with Ruach HaKodesh and with the Gerel and with Urim V'Tumim and all these things, but it was a big avodah to make sure that everyone had the peace of mind and the Yishuv Adas when they're giving it out. You have to remember, in the Midbar, they had whatever they needed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them everything. They weren't living in houses, they were living in tents, they had hanonim. Whatever food they wanted, they had. Clothing, whatever they wanted, they had. But now they're living a regular life, so to speak. So they have to learn how to get accommodated to these houses and these pieces of land, right? And everybody got a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. What if they don't like it? It was a problem. You had to learn how to get used to it. So that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling him, that he needs to be mechazik himself, because I'm letting you know that when you're going to be dealing with the nachla, there could be a lot of fighting, right? So you're going to be the one that has to be miyashav all these problems. It's all going to come to your table. And he says that there's 3 things that you have to be careful about. Number 1, mitzad yourself, because you're going to be the one in charge, and you're going to have to be the one making the decisions whether you like it or not. It's very lonely at the top, so to speak, and you may not fully get what the person's talking about. But it does say that by Yeshua that he was able to be that he's able to understand everybody. But I think we could say it a little deeper than what we were learning until now. He understood their needs, and even before they needed the nachla, so he was going to give them something that they were going to be comfortable with. Yes, it was done al pi Ruach HaKodesh, but then he wouldn't have to be dealing with it afterwards if the guy's comfortable with the piece of land that he got. And then the person who's number 2, the person that's getting the piece of property. So you hope that he's going to be comfortable with that. And the third thing is that there was a shvua that Asher nishbati lavaisam lasis lahem. That's the rest of the pasuk. So if you're not comfortable with your piece of land, it's not just bad for you. It's going to look bad because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a shvua to Gans Klal Yisrael that you're going to get a chelik in Eretz Yisrael, and you're going to be like, oh, my place is bad. Right? The Gemara at the end of Ksubas, the Gemara says they wouldn't say bad things about Eretz Yisrael. The Amir Tanam and Amiram, they wouldn't be able to get themselves to say anything bad about Eretz Yisrael because it's not bad. You can't, And there's common stories of Gedalim, the way that they were noig with Eretz Yisrael, they're very differently than other things. And you don't want the Shavua to be for nothing. You want the Shavua to be Mekoim properly. Meaning, even though there was done, some people will say, we need to do it al pi halacha. Ruach HaKodesh, we don't paskin with Ruach HaKodesh. We paskin with things. People might be upset that you're paskin with Ruach HaKodesh. It's not so geschmack. But that's the pshat in why HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs to give him this chizuk. Now, we're not going to see the it's going to be a while till after they cross the Yarden, until after the Milchama, that they're going to start doing this. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving him a heads up, because this was his avodah. These were the two things. The next 14 years were the most crucial in getting Eretz Yisrael. Meaning, right now, or in a couple of days from now, in the Psukim, they're going to cross the Yarden, but then start 7 years of war and 7 years of settling, cleaning up and settling the properties. And we know that, we find that, people, what do I mean by this? That people are going to be ma'orer on people are going to complain about the Nachal if it was done through HaKodesh. Because Korach, you remember him, so he was saying that there was problems. He started up with Ruach HaKodesh because he said, who's Aaron, right? Why is Aaron not Kohen? We could all be Kohanim Gedolim. Like Korach started up with Ruach HaKodesh, and the Korach Shepikecha, Rashi says Lashon, Korach Shepikecha, Marelish does that. Right? He saw Ruach HaKodesh that Korach also had Ruach HaKodesh, and he was being more around the other Ruach HaKodesh. So on the Nubu, whatever it was. But Vaiter Gemara Bracha says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a shvuah l'toiva, he's not chayzer by, right? So it's, so to speak, it's going to be your property. It's going to be a problem. Okay. Another interesting thing that the Mefarshim speak out over here is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is maftiach him le'isatze vish b'fanecha, and you're going to be the Rosh, and you're going to be the Manik of Klal Yisrael. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be with you the same way he was with Moshe. Now that could be a very big problem. Why? Because, again, the whole story of the Torah doesn't end with the Haftacha, with the Kiyum of the Haftacha. Because Klal Yisrael is still in Arvis Moav, they're still in Ever Yarden. The story didn't end. He left us hanging, right? So we spoke in the first year that the pshat is that's why the Gemara says that Amalei Chatu Yisrael, if Klal Yisrael wanted to Mechayta Beta Egel, then they would have. Then the only Torah that we would have is Chamish Chumshei Torah and Sefer Yeshua. So why Sefer Yeshua more than any other than Nevi'im? Because at least we see Klal Yisrael getting into Eretz Yisrael. That's in Pasha Pshat and what's going on over here, right? But the main character, so to speak, starting from Parsha Shmais till the end, is Moshe Rabbeinu, right? But he doesn't get to the end of the story. He gets dropped off where the Torah ends off. It's Vayamas Moshe and Vayikbar Bakai, V'chulu, and then Yeshua takes over, and he's Machnas everyone in Eretz Yisrael. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is maftiach him that Kasher Haya Moshe Eyemach. But Moshe didn't get it all the way, so maybe Yeshua is going to start being chayshish that he's not going to, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu might drop him off in the middle, right, and not take him all the way. But that's why the pasuk goes weiter over here. Ki ata Tnachil asa'am hazeh. I'm promising you that you're not going to be left out of this. Meaning you're going to be the one taka that's going to bring everybody into Eretz Yisrael. Meaning because Moshe Rabbeinu worked as hard as anybody, worked as hard as anything for 40 years to bring them into Eretz Yisrael, and then he doesn't even get to do that, right? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, "Le'taver Yarden hazeh." So maybe Yeshua was a little bit chayshish that it might happen to him, something like that. Or lav dafka about going into Eretz Yisrael, because Baruch Hu maftiach him that you'll be able to be loichem against all the kings that are in Eretz Yisrael. Then it might not happen. And we'll see exactly what happened, because Lamaisa, at the end of the day, there was a little bit of chalish sadas on Yeshua's part, that he didn't end up going through 100%, and there were still goyim that were left over, and then, there was a whole ishtalshus hadvarim, which is why Yeshua only lived 110 years, and he lost 10 years of his life, as opposed to living the full 120 years like Moshe Rabbeinu. And not only that, but, Yeshua could say, okay, fine, very good. So maybe I'll be able to, I'll make it all the way through. What about Klal Yisrael? Maybe Klal Yisrael got dropped off somewhere along the way, right? The Yidden that left Mitzrayim, they did not make it into Eretz Yisrael. They got lost. They were nifted. They died in the Midbar. So maybe something's going to happen to Klal Yisrael also. Maybe they're going to get lost somewhere along the way. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is maftiach, you're going to be manchel es ha'am hazeh es ha'aretz Hashem shbat l'vayis Islam. You and them will bring them all the way into Eretz Yisrael 100%. No makram to be afraid that you're going to get dropped off somewhere along the way, like what happened by the Dar Midbar. It's not going to happen to you, which is a very interesting thing. Because like we talk about the Dar Midbar, the Dardeya, the Gressa Madrega, and it was. No one could deny that's a fact. But at the end of the day, they didn't go into Eretz Yisrael. Not only that, but like the Haftacha of the whole Torah didn't happen until now. So now Yeshua is chayshish that maybe it's not going to. So that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu has to tell him, and Tnchiil, you and Klal Yisrael will get Eretz Yisrael in the fullest extent. Okay, now here's where we're going to get back to Chazak Ve'amatz. The what does it mean? So Bnei Yissaschar, whose yahrzeit was this past Shabbos, has a sefer on Yeshua called Derech Secha. We quoted from it in the past. So he says, Chazak, Hainu shalei tirashel michayzkecha, that you shouldn't let go. Meaning, once you have a chizik in something, you should keep powering through. Ki yera ish chazak mechaveirei, when you'll see somebody stronger than somebody else. Aval b'yiyush v'esrashlos yischazak chaveir achalosh mimenu. But it's possible that when you're giving up, the person who gives up more than you can take you down even further. So, HaKadosh Baruch was telling him that you shouldn't have any kind of yiyush, any kind of falling down. You should have a very strong conviction throughout the whole thing. Hold strong, don't let go. And then it says ve'amatz, meaning even if you're going to go to a war and beteva you see that they're a lot stronger than you, don't be afraid. Why? Because ve'amatz means that you'll get a new wind. You get a lot of times like you're tired, you're falling asleep, then you get like a second wind, and like you can manage power through the whole rest of the night or for the next couple of hours. That's what matters. Chazak means you have a koich, you're going stark, you're going strong. Amatz means that not just you're continuing, but it gets even stronger, and not just that it gets even stronger, but it comes with the Taisefes Chizuk and the Taisefes Koyach and the Taisefes. It's coming from a Malkum of Eschachus, which is what we'll get to in a little bit. I mean that each, and he's medarik in the pasuk, a very interesting thing. He says, "Ve'amatz hu haisafas koyach v'leidas koyach chadash b'chol pam." It's addition of strength and a new koyach each time. Al kein ve'amatz bepasach be'esnachta shel mishpat. The diktuk should really be chazak ve'amatz because it's a esnachta. So esnachta is a pause. It's like at the end of a sentence. So it should really be with a pasach. But I'm sorry, it should really be with a kamatz. But because it's by it is with a kamatz. I'm not sure which pasuk is going on now. Okay, amatz pasach, or it's going on the next pasuk. That was interesting because he says this on pasuk vav, not pasuk zayin. Give either way. Chazak ve'amatz. He says it's by pasuk ve'esnachta. It's shloikim mishpat. Why? Lahayros psichas hakoyach v'chodesh b'chol pam. To teach you, to show you that there's a opening, a new opportunity for schachus and koyach each time. Okay, so this is what I want to talk about. This is now we're going to get to the juicy stuff. They bring the story from the Cheves Halvavos. The Cheves Halvavos bring the story, and the Baalei Mussar bring it in a lot of different places. That they saw an army coming back from celebrating victory. They came back from a war. And Paga Bahem Chassid Echad, a wise man, a righteous man, met them on the way, and he said to them, "I see that you won the small war. What are you going to do about the big war?" What do you mean the big war? We just killed out, hundreds, thousands of people. So what do you mean by that? He says, "What about your fight against Yetzer Hara?" Oh, so what are you going to do? So Reb Chatzkel, they all bring from Reb Chatzkel Abramsky, it's V'daik in the pasuk. Very interesting. I don't want to get into the politics of anything right now. One day we will, well, not right now. But Chatzkel Abramsky says, you see a very interesting thing. When he's talking about the war, he says Chazak ve'amatz. When he's talking about the Torah and the mitzvahs, the next pasuk, Chazak ve'amatz ma'oid. You need a lot more chizik to get involved in Torah and mitzvahs than to fight the war, than to be asking Derech Eretz, to be asking all these other things. So when there's a specific Yetzer Hara that stops a person from being asking about Torah, Fakert, the Yetzer Hara will tell you to do all kinds of mitzvahs, and everything will turn into a mitzvah as long as you don't have to sit down and learn. And we know the Gemara says, Barasi Yetzahara, Barasi Taratavlin, that the way to fight against the way to fight the war against the Yetzahara is with the Torah. And Al Yedei Melcham Tishal Torah, that's how you fight the Yetzahara. We'll see how that's going to work with the actual Melchama that they're having against the nations. And is this exact war between the Yetzirah and Yetzahara, the Torah fighting against the Yetzahara, the Torah, the Kedusha, L'umas HaTumah, the Kedusha fighting the Tumah. Okay. I decided to make things a little more pilpulistic, so let's go like this. The pasuk of this passage, Parashat Shmoi, says, "Vayakam melech chadash al Mitzrayim," right? And there was a new king that came up on Egypt. Was he really new, or he was Shenas Chachuk Zeiroisav? So it's like Machlekes. It's the Gemara Soita, it's the Gemara Erev, and Rashi brings it. So Rav Shmuel, Chada Amar Chodosh Mamish, v'Chada Amar Shenas Chachuk Zeiroisav. One says that he was a brand new king, physically new. One was that he was the same old guy, and he just changed the policy. It's not clear in the Gemara who holds what. Why is it important to know? Because that's the whole shtickle that we're going to say. It's only important for the shtickle. If it's emes, I have no idea. Probably not. I always say, Geshmak Avort, better than emes Avort. Emes Avort, it's dry like anything. You don't want to go there, right? So it's not clear in the Gemara who holds what, right? But if you're ma'ayin in the Gemara, they're in Erevin. There's a whole bunch of other Rabu Shmuels over there. And if you take a look in Erevin Daf Nun Gimel, so the Gemara has the Mishnah is over there is Ketz and Ma'abrin. How do you make Ge'ibra between two cities for Erevin, for Shabbos? So Rav Shmuel, so Nacham Machlek is Rav Shmuel. Chatani Ma'abrin with an ayin, Chatani Ma'abrin with an aleph. Right, it doesn't say who holds what, but Yerushalmi says Rav Tani Ma'abrin with an aleph, and Shmuel says Ma'abrin with an ayin. So it's clear who holds what. So you see that the first memra is from Shmuel, and the second memra is from Rav, which is interesting, because Derek Rav goes before Shmuel, right? So over here is Fakir. Right? That's also probably also part of Shtickle, Fine. So we could say in this machlekes that we have about Paroi, if he was Chadash Mamish or Chachuk Zeiroisav, so Shmuel holds that he was Chadash Mamish, and Rav holds it was Chachuk Zeiroisav. Okay, why is it Negeya? So the told us there's a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov. So he brings in Parashat Shmois, he says that Paroi is the Yitzhar. I mean, the Kazmainim say even earlier, much earlier than him, that the Paroi is connected to Yitzhahara. And the Ikra Avodah of the Yitzhahara is to confuse people and to tell them that this Avera that you're doing is really a mitzvah, you're going to be Mekadashim Shemayim, or you'll become a Baal Tshuva after you do it. The Baal Tshuva is even greater. These shtiklach that they say, fine, good. So that's Shenas Chachuk Zeiroisav. He comes with all kinds of Naya Tyrus, and he comes with all kinds of Naya Cheshbainis to convince you all kinds of Chedushim. He's not a new person. He's the same old Melech Zaken Uksil, the pasuk says. He's trying out to bench. He's an old guy. He's been around, We have to be even older and smarter than him. Fine, that's the fine. So that's the pshat Shenas Chachuk Zeiroisav. Now, there's not a machlekes Rav Shmuel. The Gemara Shabbos Daf Ayin Hey, Shoichet Mishum Mai Mechayev. A person shech something on Shabbos, what's he chayev for? Rav Amar Mishum Tzeiveya. Rav says because he's coloring. And Shmuel Amar Mishum Netilas Neshama. Yeah? And there's a famous verse that they say from the Baal Shem Tov over here also, that the Sheikhet over here is referring to, that we're talking about the Yitzhar over here also. And he says, Rav says Mishum Tzeiveya is because you're coloring it. He makes everything with a nice color, makes everything look so, and it's really not the way it looks. He makes it look like the Averis, all kinds of nice, beautiful things. And they're mitzvahs, so that's Vaiter Shenas Chachuk Zeiroisav. So that's what Rav holds. And Shmuel says Mishum Netilas Neshama, because the Gemara Bavasha says that the Yetzirah is the Satan's Malcham Aves. Right? The Yetzirah convinces you to do Avera. Then he becomes a Satan. He goes up to Hashem and he snitches on you and he says, "Oh, by the way, he did an Avera. So what's his job now? He's Neitel Neshama. So he's Chayav Mishum Netilas Neshama. That's what Shmuel holds is the pshat in Shoichet Mishum Mai Mechayev. And the Gemara Sukkah and Daf Nun Beis says, Yitzrei Shel Adam, this is where it gets exciting. Yitzrei Shel Adam is Meschadesh Alav B'chol Yom U'Mevakesh Lahamisai. Right? Now there's another Lashon in the Gemara. Yitzrei Shel Adam Misgaber Alav B'chol Yom U'Mevakesh Lahamisai. Right? But before we get to that, the Pshat is weiter what Shmuel is saying, there's B'chad Mishum Netilas Neshama, is because the whole job of the Yetzer Hara is because he's Mevakesh Hamisai. Right? He wants to kill him. He wants to get rid of the tzaddik. He wants to get rid of the person that's, not it's very interesting. And so they shtel to a berhetiv in Siman Mem Vav, the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, brings on the Arizal, and Kabbalah all talk about this. You make a bracha Shalei Sani Goy every day. What do you do it every day for? Today you're going to become a guy. I don't know, you're 40 years old. How could you become a guy today? Right? So they say that the pshat is when your shama goes up at night, maybe the neshama that comes down, the neshama of a guy. So Yitzray is mechadish. The Yetzer Hara is mechadish a new neshama for you. So he's mechadish a love b'chol yom. He brings the new neshama for you. He could give you a neshama of a guy. So that's a pshat in Chodesh Mamash. Because it's one thing if he's shenis chadshuk zeraisa, he's just giving you new ideas and telling you, oh, that's a mitzvah, that's a this, don't do that, do the other thing, right? But if the pshat is that he gave you a whole new neshama, a bad neshama, so to speak, then he's convincing you, then he's melech chodesh mamash. Yeah? We're not done yet. So nachamach like this Rav Shmuel. I think this is very spot on. The Gemara Brachas on the Avsamach Aleph says, Omar Rav, Yetzer Hara daima l'zvuf. Yetzer Hara can be compared to a fly. V'yoyshev ben shnei mafteche halev, and sits between the two openings of the heart. Shenamar zvuvay maves yavish. The flies of death will make spoiled. Yabi Hashem and rekeach, and will ruin the good smelling oil. Ushmol Amar Shmuel says kamin chita. The Yetzer Hara can be compared to a wheat. Shenamar kamin chita udam. Shenamar lepesach chatas revetz. That chatas is lashon chita. That's burned in the Gemara all over the place. So, Kafi Ha'amar, it's all the Shitasam over here also. There's two Lashonis in the Gemara again we said before. Yitzrei Shel Adam is Mizgaber Lov and Vakesh Lam Yisai, or Yitzrei Shel Adam is Mischadish Lov and Vakesh Lam Yisai. The Yetzer Hara of Rav, that's Daimel Uzvov, that's Yeshev Ben Shnei Mavtechei Alev, that's Shemis Gaber Lov and Vakesh Lam Yisai, which is the same as Shemis Chadshuk Zeiroisav. And over there you need Chizik with the Keiches that you already have, right? If you think about it, the Zvuvim, the flies are always around spoiled meat, dead things, yucky things. That's because it's already been there for a while already. There's no chiddush over there. If I cared, whenever there's chiyus, whenever there's life, so then there's chiddush. There's always a chance to be mechadish. Once it's dead, it's over. So that's where the flies come in. That's the Yetzer Hara of Misgabrel, of Shenis Chadshuk Zerais, of Melech Zakun Iksil, shine out. He's there for a long time already. But the Yetzer Hara of Shmuel, that's Daima Kechita, Chita gives sustenance, gives chiyus, gives chizik. The Gemara says that Eina tinik yedea likres abba ima achatayim tam dagon. That a child doesn't know anything, doesn't have any das whatsoever until he tastes chita, and then he says abba ima. One place the Gemara doesn't say abba, the Gemara just says ima. So the Svarim will say it's referring to the matzah. Let's say this is a separate shmuz. But the concept is that the really lahalacha is not communal lahalacha. There's a lot of talk about this. If a baby's calls mine a baby's nursing, so then if there's a dirty diaper there, you can make a bracha there because that's not considered a tzaya. The tzaya is not considered tzaya. Once he's time tam dagan, then tzaya is considered tzaya. The das, when he has that das, that's when it creates this problem, right? That's what the Chet Adam Rishon was. Right? Now he's a Yedei Tavrat. Now he has a certain type of chachma. He has a certain level of intellect that he didn't have before. Right? So that's the Yetzer Hara of Shmuel. The Yetzer Hara of Shmuel is Daimik Kechita. That's V'schadash Alav B'chol Yom. And for that, chizik is not enough. You need to have imuts. Why? You need to be meschadash keneged the Yetzer Hara that's meschadash against you every day. Every day it comes it's a new thing, and not only that, we have to be chayshish. There's makom to be chayshish. I don't want to say we have to be chayshish. There's makom to be chayshish that there's a whole new neshama going on over here with a whole new Yetzer Hara. It's a whole different program. It's not like Pshat is the same guy that's been bothering you the last 30 years. No, it's a whole new set of issues, right? So that's a pshat in Chazak is like Rav, and Vamatz is like Shmuel. Okay? And would come out very good according to the Bnei Yisachar that he says that it's Dafka Pasach. Chazak ve'ematz, not Chazak ve'emotz. The first time it's Chazak ve'emotz. The second time it's Chazak ve'ematz, because every time you need the imutz, you need to be you need it. It's a new opportunity. It's a Pasach. It's a new Pesach. La Pesach Chatzos Revet, that we were saying before. And therefore, he'll have a koach to in order to be oimid on that, to be able to fight against that Yetzer Hara. And it's just interesting that fine, that Adkan the pilpul Adkan the fancy Torah for tonight, but the Rabbi Yaina Shar Tshuva in the very beginning, I think it's in the how does he call it over there, in the fifth part of Tshuva, fifth step of Tshuva, in the Ois Chaf, he says Akri Kain Omar Akri Kain Dashin Psukim. He says Ashrei Adam Mafachet Tam the Makshal Liba Yipal Bara. He says praiseworthy is a person who's constantly afraid, and a person who hardens his heart is going to fall into bad stuff. And he explains Pirush. This is what he says: Afal Pishu Moide VaOizev, even though he's Moide, does Vidoy VaOizev, and he lets go of the Yetzer Hara, lets go of the Averis. Yeshal of Lafachet Tamid Ulay LeHishlam Chayka Tshuva. Maybe he didn't finish the Tshuva properly. Kitrichel Madregas Rabbis. Tshuva has a lot of Madregas. V'Yosef Aimes Bechol Yaim Lahazig HaMadregas. He's saying that person has to always constantly be Mosef Aimes. This is Lashon. That's why we're saying it, because the person has to be Mosef Aimes Bechol Yaim Lahazig HaMadregas Gam Yivchad Ulay Yischadish Olav Yitzray. A person has to be Chayish because maybe Yetzer Hara will be Mischadish on him. V'Yishma Mimenu Bechol Eis. He has to be protected from him at all times. V'Yosef Yiras Hashem Menavshay Tamid. A person has to constantly be adding Yiras Hashem constantly. V'Yispalel Tamid Al Hashem. A person has to constantly be davening to Hashem. LaIsrael La Tshuva La Tilei MiYitzray. The davening to Hashem that Hashem should help him with Tshuva to protect him from Yetzer Hara. V'Makshal Liba Yipal Bara. And this that the pasuk continues and says a person who hardens his heart will fall into bad things. Person who says in his heart, I completed my tshuva, and he never continues to be mishtadel to reach greater heights in his tshuva. A person will get punished for this. He's a balgaiva. Doesn't realize how low he really is. A person doesn't even recognize the greatness of the obligation that he has. How he constantly has to be improving his ways with new ideas. A person who says, I don't have to do anything. And then he has to, then he's going to get into problems, and then he's going to, he's going to fall into the trap. He's going to fall into the trap of Yetzer Hara. So, it was just interesting that Rabbeinu Yonah uses the Lashonos that we were talking about. So, it's just good to know. It's very basic in the beginning of Shar Tshuva. Okay. Okay. Stam, interesting. Ha'ara, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah and Daf Beis Mod Beis, Ein la'oim ela malchus, shenamar la'oim eloim yamatz. That it's pasuk in Parshas told us over there by Yaakov and Esav. Rashi says sheyamatz l'shayich el b'malchus. The sinning of imutz is only shayich by malchus. So it's just interesting that we're using the lashon over here of chazak ve'ematz, and Rashi says it's ein shayich el b'malchus. The Rambam says in Parak Yud Ches Hilchos Sanhedrin at the end over there, v'zeh shahara Yeshua Ochan. Later on, there's a parasha with Achan that stole from the thing, so Yeshua killed him. V'David legera Amaleki v'das PM, and this that David killed the Gera Amaleki when he came back from the Milchama with Shaul, and by Hadas Piv, just by Hadas Piv without Adam. Harasha Hoisa, either was Harasha, or Din Malchus Haya, or it was a din of Malchus. So we're saying interesting chiddush that Yeshua would have a din of a Melech. And it's after that the Makar for the Rambam would be from here. Because just like Rashi says of it, that Imutz is Malchus, and over here we're using this Lashon again and again, So maybe it applies here to make an afkamina that Yeshua would have a din of a melech.
Yeshua kills him.
Achan.
It says that.
Yeshua was the one that the paskin the misa.
Okay.
It's not like they just ganged up on him. There was like a yeshiv besan over there, whatever it was. We'll get to Mitzvah Shem. So that's that's an interesting thing. Okay. Okay, a little bit more, and then we'll stop. Tnachil, you're going to be the one that's going to give over this the land to this nation. What's ha'am hazeh? What are we talking about? So they explain al pida megala amukas that the pasuk says that Tzaves Yeshua v'chaskeu ve'amtzeyu, command Yeshua and be mechazek and be ma'amritzim ki hu yaver lefnei ha'am hazeh v'hu yanchel oisam es ha'oretz, and that he's going to be the one that's going to give them Eretz Yisrael. So you have to command Yeshua that he's going to be the Melech and the Av Bezdin of Klal Yisrael, and he's going to be their Rosh Hashiva, and he's going to have to answer all their shilas. So that's a pshat in Chazak V'Amatz. Also, Chazkeu B'Torah, and the Amtzeyu is B'Mulchama U'B'Derech Eretz. And that's a pshat, Ki Hu Yaver L'Fnei Ha'om Hazeh is B'Mulchama. Meaning he's going to be the one that's going to, he's not just going to be, we said this last time, that the pshat is, he's not just, a leader doesn't just mean he gives commands. A leader shows by example. Befrat over here, the Midrashim say very clearly over here that Yeshua's job was to physically be standing in front of Klal Yisrael. It almost sounds like they're like, if anybody passes in front of him, he's going to lose out. I mean, he has to stand in front mamish. I was like straight in Yalkut, and it could be 2 minutes free, but Yalkut definitely brings it. V'hu yanchil oisam is that he's going to give them, he's going to be manchil them the Torah, because the pasuk says kvoid chachamim yinchalu. So that's a pshat when it says ki ata tanchil sa'om hazeh, that he'll give them the Torah the same way that he'll give them Eretz Yisrael, he'll give them a geviz Torah, which hopefully we'll get to talk to the next couple of psukim, because pasuk ches is leyomer sefer Torah zemipicha v'gisa b'yom v'layla. That's a tremendous tzivoy that haftacha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him, that he should always constantly be learning. The pasuk says v'nasata, when Moshe Rabbeinu was giving smicha to Yeshua to appoint him as the next leader, he says v'nasata mehoidcha alav. That hoid that Moshe Rabbeinu had, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him to give from that to Yeshua. What was that hoid? What was that? That was the Or HaTorah, and the Or HaTorah is the ability to be mechaben la'amita shel Torah. Yeah, not like we just said. Right? We just said not probably in Gantz, not la'amita shel Torah, right? And that's a pshat in Moshe Kibul Torah Misinai Misar Yeshua, that Yeshua is the next link in the chain of the Torah. And it's state that it's a Gemara Nedarim that after the Chet Egel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to not give the Torah to Klal Yisrael. I wanted to give the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu, but Moshe Rabbeinu davened, and Basayif, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah only to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael, but Toivas Einoi, he gave it to Klal Yisrael. So the whole mitzvah of Torah that we have today is because of the midah of Toiv Ayin that Moshe Rabbeinu had. And Yeshua was Isha Sharuach Bay, like we said before. And Rashi says over there, what does that mean? That he's able to be Mahalach Kineg. So we said a pshat before. Well, what we're saying over here is, in order to give over the Torah to somebody, you have to be able to find something good, something positive in that person should be the proper klekibel for the Torah. And it's really interesting, because if we're talking here, Pasuk Vav is Chazak ve'ematz is the pshat derech eretz, right? And Pasuk Zayin and Ches is Chazak ve'ematz for the Torah. It's almost like a Kabbalah Satira. So what is the Kabbalah Satira? The Kabbalah Satira of Klal Yisrael going into Eretz Yisrael is right now this Chazak ve'ematz. This is what's happening here. And the pshat really is, the Mishnah says in Alvis, Kol she'yir eschatay, Kaidamis lechachmasa, sen chachmasa miskayemes. Right, so Ben Yain asks, how could it be that a person has more yiras chet than his chachma? You don't know about chataim, because how do you know what's right and what's wrong if your yiras chet is greater than your chachma? Your chachma is small and your yiras chet is big, but how could you have yiras chet if you don't know what your chachma is? So Rabbi Yana says it's not the pshat. The pshat is that you're allowing yourself to become a vessel to be makabel the Torah, and when he says that, it's keilu a person makabel kol makabel on himself. It's keilu he's makayim all the mitzvahs. What's fascinating is I don't remember if Rabbi Yana brings this or not, but in the Avos Reb Nassan, when he goes through this mission of kol shiras chetek namsa chachmasai chachmasai miskayemes shenemar nasa v'nishma, right? So go figure out that's l'chayr pasha, right? But that's what's going on over here also. That he's saying chazak ve'amatz. You got to be making yourself to make yourself a klei kibul, to allow yourself to be makabel the Torah. Now, hopefully in the next year we'll talk a bit in what exactly was the Kabbalah Torah here. It doesn't really look like there was a Kabbalah Torah. It just says Vagis be'em v'layla. Really, what's happening is that there was a lot of Torah that Moshe gave over to Yeshua Bal Peh. That there was a Messiah of Torah Shabbal Peh from Moshe to Yeshua. Much of that Torah was not given to him to be given over to others. It was just specifically for Yeshua. And Yeshua was to do with it whatever he was supposed to do with it. Some of it was for Yeshua to give over to Klal Yisrael at the right time, right? But there was a Messiah Satira, a Kabbalah Satira that was happening right now. We know that Yisrael is Rosh Tevis Shishim Riboy Oisis LaTorah, and each neshama of the Shishim Riboy in Klal Yisrael has an ois on the Torah that's connected that. And how do you figure that out? You can only figure that out when you have the mid of Taivayan, because then you're able to look at you're able to see what the person needs. You're able to give the person the Torah that he needs. And that's a pshat in Menasat Mehoid Chalav. This HaTorah was to give over. What is this HaTorah? This HaTorah L'chayra is this Taivayan that Menasat Mehoid Chalav, to give over the Malucha, to give over the Anhaga to Yeshua, because it says Vayitan Olav, and that's Malchus, and Nasan Olav Chain. And that means similar to the idea of Menasat Mehoid Chalav, and everybody says that it's very befitting for him to be the one to take over, and that's a pshat. What is that for, right? But the pshat is that if he has the proper chain and he has the proper kalim and he's the right person for it, so now ultimately all Klal Yisrael is going to listen to him, and that's really that. It's the Aretz Hashem Shbati Lavosim Lasis You explained earlier from the Arvei Nachal that every chelik in Eretz Yisrael has another chelik of Torah, and those were the halachas that were nishtachid be'evlei shel Moshe. Just interesting point. Nashim aren't going to fight. We're going to see later on in the Pesukim what their job was, right? They're not in the fight because they don't learn Torah. If you learn Torah, you're in the fight. If you're not in their job is the shmira, right? As the Gemara says, right? Their job is to protect the husbands and to wait for the husbands, protect the husbands, but the Iker Nakuda is that the Malchama now is a Malchama Keneged the Yetzahara, Keneged the Kechsatoma, which Mitzrayim will be misgaber on. Ad Kam.